the name of the game for Trump.
Plus, dramatic new evidence revealed in the case against a man known as the Apostle, the leader of a church that claims 5 million members. In court, he was depicted by California prosecutors as anything but holy.
He is a sexual deviant predator.
State agents describing how he uses the power of his religious authority to terrify the young girls they say have become his sex servants.
And she was taught within the church.
And disturbing.
The church says it has more than 5 million members in 53 countries around the world. And to them, Mason Joaquin Garcia is known as the Apostle, as Jesus Christ on earth. But over the last 2 weeks in a Los Angeles courtroom, Garcia has been depicted by state investigators as anything but holy.
This man is a predator.
He has been under arrest for rape, child pornography, and sex trafficking for more than a year now. The hearings were determined if there was enough evidence to go to trial and whether he should be able to post bond.
Parishioners, adult women, turn a blind eye because he's the apostle. Everything he does and anything you do to him, even though it seems wrong, is going to be forgiven because he is basically God on earth. That's what they preach.
The charges against Garcia by the California Attorney General involve allegations from 6 people, identified as Jane Does 1 through 5 and a John Doe. Agent Troy Holmes was questioned by prosecutor Amanda Plesner.
Did Jane Doe tell you whether she wanted to have sex with Defendant Garcia the first time that she did?
Objection relevant. She did.
What did she tell you?
Said she did not want to have sex with him.
Did she give you any further detail about why she didn't want to?
She discussed feeling like she couldn't say no because of being scared of him, in the sense of not wanting to make him mad.
Did Jane Doe tell you why she cared whether she made Defendant Garcia mad?
Yeah, she said it had to do with her spirituality and what she was taught within the spirituality and what she was taught within the church. She discussed if she felt like if she made him mad, that would make God mad. And she was taught within the church, if God is mad at you, you could be, quote unquote, struck down by lightning, cut in half, put in a wheelchair, that sort of thing. So it was like a physical harm she was taught if God was mad at her.
And she was taught that by, or did Jane Doe tell you that was teachings of the Lulu's building the church?
Yes.
Also charged with Garcia are 2 women, senior church members, Alondra Ocampo and Susanna Osaka, accused of recruiting and grooming the young girls for Garcia's sexual acts.
Ocampo told the group that she was going to tell them something special. She told them about God and about Bible verses. Ocampo told the group about about God allowing a king to take a woman to please him and serve him, and that anything an apostle of God did was in favor of God, and if they went against any of his desires or wishes, they were going against God. She told them it would be she said it would be an abomination to deny his desires in any way.
And agents testified that Garcia was able to use his power as the leader of the worldwide church to choose girls of the right age and background.
The defendant would want to know the age, the names, and often the family or church connection to the girls, because he would direct their grooming based off how close the member of the family was to the church, because he wanted everything to stay very much close-knit and didn't like outsiders.
Agents testified that when Garcia was arrested as he stepped off a private plane at Los Angeles International last year, they were able to seize his phone and other electronic devices that contain hundreds, if not thousands, of graphic photos and sex tapes.
The series of videos is multiple girls engaged that are naked or nude, engaged in oral sex, vaginal penetration, what I would describe as an orgy on a bed.
Approximately how many girls?
Approximately 6.
And you said they're nude?
Yes.
The apostle, wearing a mask with his handcuffs attached to a waist chain, looked on, showing little reaction as other videos were described.
There were those 4 girls, and there was Ocampo. Ocampo, according to Jan Doe number 1, Ocampo took videos and photographs of this incident. Ocampo made it seem like a playful event with whipped cream and what Jan Doe number 1 described as weird stuff. The girls were naked, and Ocampo told them to put whipped cream on each other and to kiss each other, and made them touch each other on their breasts and vaginal areas.
And then a description of a video with Garcia and a young boy in a mask and an older woman.
You can see the confidential male victim laying on the bed, still wearing the mask, unclothed. You can see Azalea Rangel oral copulating the boy, also having sexual intercourse with him. Around the 5-minute mark in that video, Defendant Garcia comes into view of that video, and he is recording a different angle of the sexual acts that are occurring with his iPhone.
Were you able to see Mr. Defendant Garcia's face in the video sufficient to identify him?
Absolutely.
Agents testified that Garcia's position as the apostle, as the leader of the Light of the World Church, made him uniquely dangerous, a contention that was challenged by Garcia's lawyer.
And you believe, you told Judge Hunter, and you're testifying now, that that particular religious doctrine is one of the things that makes Mr. Garcia so dangerous if released, correct?
Yes. I think it's a piece of the puzzle of why he could be so dangerous is because of the belief of the church and the followers, and it's just one piece of the puzzle, sir.
You said, is that if released as the authoritarian leader of a church whose millions of members regard him as something of a demigod, upon his release, he would immediately return to a position of omnipotent power within LLDM. What's your basis for that assertion?
Victim and witness testimony.
Mr. Holmes, you wrote that if released, and I'm just continuing in the next sentence, he would have unfettered access to countless potential victims who would feel religiously obligated or otherwise coerced into complying with his relentless sexual demands.
Counsel, you don't receive the calls I receive. These victims, not only these victims, but these people in general that have spoken out of the church are terrified. There's online threats every day against these people. They're terrified. They're scared to death that this gentleman over here is going to get out of jail.
Garcia's lawyers also challenged why each of the alleged victims who claimed they were raped or abused by Garcia never said no or sought outside help.
So, as we sit here today, there's no evidence of any objection being uttered by her.
You mean vocalized? Is that
Correct. Correct. At the time.
Correct.
Okay. She didn't call the police. Correct?
Correct.
You indicated that Jan Doe 5 told you that my client, quote, grabbed her and rolled her onto the bed, correct?
Yeah, grabbed her by her waist and pulled her towards him, then rolled her over, and then he was on top of her.
Before he ever touched her, she was touching him first, right?
I believe she was giving a foot massage or some kind of massage.
She never objected out loud in that scenario to him or anybody else, correct?
She didn't say that. She didn't say she objected. So.
Okay. Is there any evidence that she yelled out or hollered out, "Help!" or something?
No.
There's no evidence that she ever called the police.
She didn't tell me that.
Let me ask that question again. There's no evidence that she ever called the police, correct?
I'm basing this testimony on what she told me, and she didn't tell me she called the police.
So as we sit here in the universe of evidence that we do have, I'm not asking you to speculate about what we don't have. I'm just asking you what is in front of this court. There's no evidence in front of this court that she ever called the police. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So she got into the shower of her own free will, correct?
I'm not sure it was in her own free will.
Well, it certainly was the suggestion, according to her, it was the suggestion of someone. But there's no gun held at anybody's head, right?
Prosecutors told the judge Garcia's lawyers were essentially trying to blame the victims.
They don't want to talk about the facts of this case. They don't want to talk about the statements from 5 victims about how they were raped by Mr. Garcia. They don't want to talk about how Miss Oaxaca and Miss, more relevantly, obviously, Miss Ocampo would bring these girls to him. They don't want to talk about these women, these girls, who have complained to the Attorney General's office about being forced to orally copulate Mr. Garcia. And they don't want to talk about the statements by the victims, Your Honor, that oral cop was forced on them. They don't want to talk about the videos with a young boy and Mr. Garcia in it, having an orgy. The young boy having sex with a member of his own family, Your Honor. They don't want to talk about that because those facts are not good for them.
In the end, the judge ordered Garcia to stand trial. The apostle is being held, Rhonda, on a $90 million bail. What do we hear from the church?
Well, Brian, we invited members of the church and his defense attorneys to appear on the program. They did not respond to our request for interviews, but a spokesperson for the church put a statement on their Facebook page, not mentioning the videotapes that were referenced that we just heard about in court, but saying that these were outlandish claims, outlandish evidence from anonymous sources, and assuring their followers that the apostle was an innocent and honorable man.
All right, Rhonda, thank you. Coming up, we're going to hear from a young woman who was